Hi everybody, and welcome to episode number 28 of Driftless Knitting. My name is Jennifer. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Driftless Knitter, and you can find the podcast group on Ravelry if you search for Driftless Knitting in the Groups tab. I'm coming to you as always from southeastern Minnesota. It is a cold, gray spring day. It's May 2nd. So happy May, everybody. It's kind of funny. A week ago today, Seaver and I were out hiking it was a little rainy and gray, but it was warm. It was pretty nice. It was a good day to get outside. And then today, I am wearing a wool sweater, 2 layers of clothes, and it's like in the high 30s, low 40s. So we've kind of taken a couple steps backwards, I feel like, in this whole spring thing. But it is May, which means that a lot of people are participating in the Me Made May. I am not really participating in it just because I'm not a seamstress. I'm not a sewist. I make my own clothing. As you guys know, I knit my own clothing, but I only have a handful of outfits and pieces that would really work in the springtime. I'm lucky today because it's cold out, so I'm able to wear one of my hand knit sweaters, and I will show you that really quickly. Let me move the camera down a little bit. But this is my barn sweater by Carrie Bostic Hodge. It's either Hodge or Hogue. I don't know. I've heard it a couple different ways lately, and I feel like I've been saying it wrong this entire time. And I apologize if I am saying it wrong to anyone who really cares. But I'm sure you know who this designer is because she's amazing, and she has patterns and designs in a bunch of the really popular books and magazines lately. This particular sweater was in the Matter Volume 2 book, or Anthology 2, I think is what they called it. And it's got this really awesome like shawl collar going on, and it's a reverse stockinette. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see that pretty well. Reverse stockinette. It's got a garter stitch button placket, and here, I'll just stand up quick. It's got pockets, which I love, on both sides here, and they're actually like deep enough where I can put my hands in them, or you know, if I really need to carry something around in them, I can do that. And I knit this sweater out of Kenzie, which is by Haiku company, the yarn company Haiku, and it is a blend of a lot of different fibers. I believe it's wool, angora, alpaca, silk. I think that's it. There might be some mohair, maybe not mohair, camel. I don't know. I'll put the blend at the bottom, but it's a kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of different fibers. I think there might be some nylon in it too, but it's a worsted weight, and this is like the navy colorway, as you can see, I'm sure. And those little like tweedy flecks in there are actually the pieces of silk. It's silk noils. So that's what gives it the tweed look, which I love. And it's a little fuzzy. It can be, if I'm too warm, it can be a little itchy. You know how when you're super cold and you're wearing like, you know, a wool sweater, I feel like you don't really care how itchy it is. But when you start to get warmer, things start to feel itchier. So if I'm not super, super cold, this can feel a little itchy, but I do have a shirt underneath it. It's a full long sleeve shirt, which tells you how cold it is. We don't keep our heat very high either, so I was just kind of wanting to snuggle in something today, and I thought it'd be really fun to wear this one more time before, hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers that after this week the weather stays at least, I mean, I'm praying for 50s and 60s at this point. Like, I'm kind of tired of the 40s. It's getting to, like, I think it's getting to the low 30s at night, which is, like, freezing. And so a lot of people aren't able to put out plants yet. if they're not able to handle a freeze, or even those kind of lower, you know, mid to high 30s at night, people aren't able to plant anything yet. So I'm kind of waiting on mine. I know that a couple things that I want to plant on my deck are kind of cold weather hardy, so like spinach and other sort of leafy greens, they can handle low temperatures at night. But I just haven't gotten around to it. When I plant, I don't know, I feel like when I'm out there planting, I kind of want to have all my ducks in a row. I want to have everything sort of planted around the same time, at least in the same weekend. So we'll see. I still haven't done that, but really, really, really hoping for the next couple of weeks to get all that done. So I hope wherever you are, it's a little sunnier than it is here. The leaves are coming out on the trees though, and there are some flowers coming up and things like that, which is really fun to see. Every day on my drive to work, it looks a little bit different. A little greener, a little brighter. It's really fun to see the change in that way. But yeah, so I hope you all are enjoying the start to your May. I guess it's been spring for a little while technically, but it doesn't really feel that way. So the start to your May, hopefully you're able to wear some of your own handmade garments. I'm really impressed with anyone who can go the entire month of May wearing only handmade things. I feel like that would be a future goal, at least to have a couple more pieces. I've been really wanting lately to try my hand out on sewing some garments for myself. Just simple things, probably like a skirt or, you know, something like that. And I told my Oma that, and I was like, if I buy the fabric and I have the pattern and I come down to see you, can you help me sew something? And she's like, of course. You know, she would love that. So I think maybe that will be in my future. We'll see. I'll have to get to a fabric store. We have a couple in the La Crosse area, so that won't be a problem. But, you know, it's finding the time and choosing a pattern and all that stuff. So I just think it'd be fun, though, to have something besides knitwear that you can claim as your own handmade item. Speaking of knitwear, though, maybe we should get into some knitting talk. I've got a few of my project bags behind me, as you can see. I have a brand new candle that I just lit this morning called Cliffs of Insanity, which for a lot of you, I'm sure you know the reference to that. That is from Princess Bride, and this is a Frostbeard Studio candle. For those of you who have watched before, you know that I am kind of obsessed with these candles. I finished my Narnia-inspired candle a couple weeks ago when it was cold, still, you know, in April, and I was lighting a candle almost every day. And then it got warm for a while, and when it's warm, I don't know, I personally am less likely to light a candle. I have my windows open, the door open, you know, you just don't think as much of, you don't have like cozy in your head as much as when it's chilly and gray and rainy. So today felt like the perfect day to start that one up. It is more of a summery scent. It's kind of like a watery ocean smell, I would say, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how I like that one. So yeah, it's a struggle whenever I see them post on Instagram. It's a struggle not to go and buy and order a bunch of candles based on literary things that I love. So anyway, so that's my candle. I've got my coffee here. It is only like 10:30, quarter to 11, so I'm still working on my morning coffee. This is like my second cup of the day. I usually have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then 1 later on in the day. So yeah, I love my coffee. But you did not tune in to hear me talk about coffee and candles. So I'm going to start by talking about, okay, this one's about to fall, so I'm going to talk about that first. And this, again, is in my Little House, or Pioneer Girl, Prairie Girl, something like that she calls it, from Little Skein in the Big Wool. Or Ingalls Wilder inspired. which I love. Okay, so you guys, I'm so close. Okay, so this is still a work in progress, but it's so close to being finished, it's not even funny. I worked on this. I didn't get much knitting done over the weekend, and even last week I feel like I only had a couple of days where I got a good amount of knitting done. The rest of the time it was only like a row here and there, and I don't really know what was going on. This weekend I was busy. My oldest cousin on my mom's side got married, and we were down in southern Wisconsin near Milwaukee for that, and stayed with my sister on Saturday night after the wedding, so I got some good quality time with my nephew and my sister, which I love, and it was so, I don't want to say like refreshing, but when you miss someone and you're just like wishing to see them, to be able to spend some time with them, it like reboots you in a way. Does that make sense? I don't know. So Seaver and I got to go down there on Saturday morning, and then we drove with my sister and Ronan to the wedding. My brother-in-law, Nate, her husband, had to work late that night, so he came for the ceremony and then had to leave, go and work, and then he got home late. He works for the Rock County Historical Society in Janesville, Wisconsin, so they had like a donor event, and they have some pretty big names that are donors, and I guess this donor dinner gala thing is a really big deal. And so he was there, and of course couldn't miss it because he's not like a director or anything, but he is head of, I'm pretty sure he's head of like one of the departments or something like that. So he couldn't really miss it. And so Jill wanted someone to drive with her, through Milwaukee, and, to kind of help. I'm glad that we did, because Ronan was a little cranky on the way home. It was late. It was like 9:30, which is way past his bedtime. Earlier than normally weddings end, but there wasn't a dance or anything. It was just a big dinner and family time. So yeah, so he was a little cranky, and Seaver was in the back trying to kind of get him to stop crying, and yeah, it didn't work all that well, but that's okay. It was cute. So yeah, so I'm glad we were able to spend a little extra time then with her and Ronan, and then we got to spend the night and have a nice morning with them. So anyway, I didn't really get much knitting done that weekend. Sunday night and yesterday I got a little more knitting done, and that is when I almost finished the little boxy. So last time I showed this to you, I had finished the fronts, and I had gotten to the place where I had live stitches kept for the shoulders in the front, and then I had to work on the back still. So I knit, this is the back. So I knit in stockinette up here, and then I did these little garter and reverse, or not garter, stockinette and reverse stockinette, little, I don't know what you call them, little bumps. And I did mess up. You can see that bottom one only has one ridge, and I think I don't know how I messed up, but I must have gotten off track, didn't realize where I was, I don't know. So anyway, I don't think it looks bad though. And then I bound off for the back and connected the shoulders. And you connect the shoulders using a 3-needle bind off, and you can see those shoulder seams come together pretty nicely. And yeah, so I think I got that done on Monday morning, and then I picked up for the sleeve, and this looks super, super tight. But this, I have to remind myself that the sleeve hits like down here. So the shoulders, it's like a drop shoulder thing, and they're going to come down, and then this part of the sleeve is going to hit like just below the elbow. So, I mean, a 6-year-old's arm, and it is stretchy, I have to block it still. 6-year-old's arm is not that wide. so it's gonna fit her. And then this part just goes from like below the elbow down to, you know, the wrist bone. So I have that one done there, and then I have not done the other sleeve because I needed a break a little bit from stockinette stitch. I hate to say, or not stockinette stitch. I needed a break from magic loop. I love magic loop. It is my preferred method to knit in the round when I'm knitting small things. I hate double points. I hate to say it. I wish I loved double points. That's the thing. I love the way they look. I love that they are like the traditional way of knitting socks or knitting baby hats or anything like that, but the way they feel in my hands is so awkward that I will do almost anything to avoid double points. So magic loop is my preferred method of knitting in the round, and I'm fine with it. It's great. But I was knitting this magic loop on a size 24 inch, which was a little tricky just because I didn't have a very good angle. When I was pulling that cord around, I didn't have very much cord left, so I was kind of like pulling the needle a little bit and having to knit, I don't know, it just wasn't as comfortable as doing it with a 32 or a 40, and I was too lazy to go get a different size needle. So yeah, that was my own fault, honestly. But I just decided, you know, I did one sleeve, I'm going to break it up and I'm going to do the neckline. So for the neckline, you pick up, obviously, around the neck. This is the back here, and the front kind of dips down a little bit more. So you pick up around the entire neck, and then you knit in the round stockinette stitch for about, it looks about like ½ an inch or so. I think they give you a number of rows that you do, but then you bind off loosely, which I did my favorite stretchy bind off. I don't know the name of it, but it is the one given for the Pure Joy shawl by Joji Locatelli, and I use that bind off for almost everything now. I think it gives you, I used it for the sleeve too. I don't know if you might be able to see that bind off. It gives you a stretchy bind off, but I think that the finish, it looks much neater than a lot of stretchy bind offs. I think it's the Jenny stretchy bind off that you have to do a yarn over in between each stitch, and that to me looks very loose and gives it almost like a wavy look to it. And for some things that's fine, but I didn't want this to like flare out. Like, I want it to be stretchy, but I don't want it to flare out. So I do that bind off for almost everything. And it curls so much you can't really see it, but there's the bind off there. And I just did that this morning. I finished the sleeve and did the neckline this morning, and then later today I'm sure I will pick up and do the second sleeve, and then it's done. It's finished, finally. Well, not yet, but it's almost finished. I can see the end, and it's glorious, and I can't wait, because then I'm going to cast on everything else that I've been longing to. Just kidding, I still have to finish a lot of other things, but it's one step towards casting on all the things, so I'm happy. Alright, so the yarn I will talk about now, it's Spun Right Round in her 80/20 sock base, and this colorway is called Space Highway. So you can see all the beautiful speckles. Wonderful. I did knit with 2 different balls, which this is all, I've talked about this so many times, but I just want to show you how much I have left. This is one of them. This is the other one. So the pattern says I think the pattern said I needed about 780 or 790 yards. This, with these 2 skeins, was 800. So that means that if the pattern's correct and I did everything right and I was on gauge, I will have 10 yards left. So I'm really hoping that this will finish the sleeve. I think it will. I think this is plenty to finish the sleeve. And then I'll have enough to put a square in my patchwork blanket, my cozy memory blanket. Yes. So that's what I was hoping the entire time. Like, please let me have enough. I really want a square in this colorway. Yeah. priorities, right? Yeah, so this was really fun to work with. I love this yarn. I will hopefully be knitting with it many, many, many more times. But honestly, I'm ready to move on to something else. It's a good thing I'm almost done. Alright, so project number 2, whip number 2 that I worked on this week is being housed, first of all, in my Mountain State Stitches, sorry Jenny, my Mountain State Stitches bag that Jenny sent to me. And one of these was a prize for the Lit Love Cal that I hosted a couple of months ago. I think it was February through March. Yeah. And I sent one of these plus a couple other goodies to Germany, which was super, super fun. And I'm hoping that she got it okay. It might not be there yet. I totally dropped the ball and didn't send it until like a week and a half ago. Something like, maybe not even a week and a half ago. A week ago? Yeah. So hopefully she will get that soon. But I love my bag. It is big enough right now to hold, I have 2 full balls of yarn, almost 2 full balls of yarn in there, and my Find Your Fade, which granted is not that big quite yet, but big enough. I have my Sucre Sucre miniature coffee charm on there, and I just moved that up, I think last night. I had noticed that it was still like way down here, like underneath the lace, which is what I did last week. I knit the lace, and then I started striping the 2 colors, the color A and color B together, and I didn't move it up when I started doing, like, I don't move it up every time I start knitting on this. I do it kind of weekly, so my podcast episode is kind of where I judge how much I get done in the week. So I usually, if I'm knitting, and then I show it off on the podcast, I will move my progress keeper up to where I am at that point, and then knit, for the next week. So I just did that last night because I knew that I wasn't going to knit any more of it last night. I was working on my boxy. So yeah, I moved my Sucre Sucre miniature charm up. Now it will keep track of what I do this next week. And I think I'm about halfway through the color B section of garter stitch, which is just, the increasing, and then it's basically just garter stitch. But, oh my gosh, sorry. Needle went flying. So this, I love the way that the 2 colors melded together. And then this color B is, I talked about it a little bit last week, but it is Three Sisters Fiber Company in her Boathouse colorway, which was a limited edition yarn that was sold at Yarnology, which is the yarn shop that I work at. Gotta give that a little plug. In Winona, Minnesota. There we go. And yeah, so she dyed this for us to sell last year based on a photograph of the Winona area. And if you want more information about that and kind of the story behind this colorway, I talk a lot more about it in the last episode. I even showed the picture of what this yarn color is based off of. And yeah, so you should go check that out if you didn't catch that story. But I am loving the way it's knitting up. And I'm really, really hoping that I'll have enough after I finish with it in the Find Your Fade to do maybe a pair of socks, probably shorter socks. My feet are not that big, and I usually only use half a skein of yarn because I don't knit them that high. I don't really like high socks, so I only go, a little bit past my ankle, and I'm hoping that I will have enough left to be able to knit a pair of socks for myself in this. It's just such a special colorway, and especially because A, she won't be dyeing any more of it, and B, it's a Winona-based colorway. Yeah, I just want to get as much out of it as I can, so hoping I will have that left over. And the next color that I'm going to do, I'm pretty sure, so I was debating whether or not to keep my original plan for my Find Your Fade, or if I was going to have to search for more colors, because I was second guessing about 3 of the colors I had picked out. And I decided that I was going to try and find new colors for it. And I think I did. I was looking at a couple different websites. I was looking at, oh gosh, I don't even know. Over the last week, I've been kind of perusing Instagram, looking at, a couple people's in stock Etsy shops and what they had available to buy, and I just wasn't sure. I was going back and forth, and then I looked at Lisa's Three Sisters Fiber Company. I looked at Lisa's website last night. I was just curious what she had in stock. She just went to Yarn Over, which is a fiber festival in the Twin Cities, and I knew she had a really, really great festival. She sold a lot, which is amazing, and I think a lot of people were really excited to see her there. And I wanted to see what she had left over, and I started scrolling through, and I found like 3 colorways that would work. And I'm for sure she's bringing some in on Thursday for me to look at, because I texted her asking her if I should buy them through her website or just write her a check, because she'd have to refund me shipping and all that stuff. So she just told me she'd bring them in so I could look at them first and then pick out which ones I wanted and then just write her a check, which is amazing. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure I know which one's going to come after this, after the boat houses. And then there's another one that I think will work later on in the shawl. And then there's one skein of yarn that I just really, really want. I don't think it's going to fit in my Find Your Fade, but I really, really want it, and so I asked her to bring that in too so I can see it. Yeah, so hopefully next week I will be able to show you some new yarn. I just think it would be, part of me like really wants to do like the rest of the shawl in Three Sisters Fiber Company. I think that would be amazing. But yeah, so I think I'll at least have 1 or 2 more of her colors in my shawl, maybe 3. Actually, yeah, that's right. Because then there was one colorway that is being stocked at Yarnology right now. We do stock some of Lisa's yarn, and I was imagining it with the other colors I had picked out, and I think it's really going to work. And I've been eyeing that yarn since she brought it in about a month ago, and I've just told myself, I don't need it. I don't need it. When am I going to work with it? I already have, 3 of her skeins in my stash. I want to use those first. But hey, if it's going to work in my Find Your Fade and I need it to finish a project, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, that's a great excuse. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. I would love to use as much of her yarn as possible because it is insanely gorgeous. And speaking of Three Sisters Fiber Company, she is going to have a booth at Shepherd's Harvest, which is a fiber festival in the middle of May. It's actually over Mother's Day weekend, so it's like 2 weeks away. And it's up in Lake Elmo, Minnesota, which is just east of the Twin Cities. And yours truly will be there both days, Saturday and Sunday of Mother's Day weekend. And I will be helping Lisa sell yarn and chatting with people. I'm super, super excited about that, and I can't wait to go up there. So Shepherd's Harvest is always really fun. There's, 3 buildings full of yarn and goodies, and there's animals. You have your sheep, your alpaca, there's llamas. I think this year there's going to be a few yaks that someone is bringing, which is really fun. And there's shearing demonstrations. So I don't think there are actually like sheepdog trials, but they do demonstrations. In the past couple of years, they've just done some herding demonstrations, which is fascinating to me. I love watching the sheepdogs out there. Usually the couple that brings their dogs, they compete in other sheepdog trials around, the state, the country, and they have border collies. So yeah, they're just fascinating to watch. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite parts. That and the food. There's really good food. A lot of it's fair food, but then they do have some kind of home cooked food that the 4-H groups do, and so you can get like a lamb brat, you can get a hamburger. I love the baked potatoes. You can get loaded baked potatoes. Oh my gosh, I'm really hungry. Can you tell it's almost lunchtime? I'm just like, oh my god. And they also have deep fried Oreos. Last year was my first time trying a deep fried Oreo. They're so good. Okay, it sounds slightly gross, but the like fried part on the outside isn't really that thick, and they sprinkle powdered sugar on it, and then on the inside, the cookie part and the frosting, like the filling, get melty. So good. So good. So yeah, they have stuff like that, fair food and things like that, but they also have some pretty good regular, quote-unquote regular food too that you can buy. And so it's fun to just sit in the stall. I've helped Lisa the last, I think, 3 years, and I just really enjoy meeting people. I enjoy the excitement when people see a yarn that they really love, them getting excited about it and sharing in that excitement, and then sharing in Lisa's excitement because, you know, she's getting her name out there and selling her product, and she's an amazing dyer. If you have a chance to go on her website and just look at the yarns that she has, I wanted so many of them, and because she's local and I wouldn't have to pay shipping, do you understand how much of a temptation that is? And she could like deliver them to me at work, like, yeah. Not like working at a yarn shop isn't temptation enough. I mean, man, I have like ironclad self-control. Just kidding. As I look at my stash around me, I don't. So yeah, that's fun. If you are going to be in the Twin Cities area or are up for a little bit of a road trip for the day, come up and see us. I'll let you guys know what booth or what building we're going to be in. They're all numbered. And yeah, come say hi. And I'd love to meet anybody who's going to be there. So keep that in mind. It is Mother's Day weekend, Saturday and Sunday. There are classes and things like that, but there's a lot of good things to buy and look at. And oh, I love fiber festivals. They're so much fun. Okay, on to so I don't have much in the way of acquisitions or new yarn friends. I didn't buy any yarn this week. That will change probably, like I said, when Lisa brings her yarn in because, but I need it for my fade. Yeah. I did get, however, a new book, and this is called The Knitter's Book of Wool. It's not new, just putting that out there. This is not a new publication, but I did not have this in my library. So now I do. This is by Clara Parks, and she is amazing. She is like the guru of knitting. I have her, it's not really a memoir, but it's like a kind of a travel, I feel like it's kind of like a travelogue, stories that she has written down. It's called Knitlandia, and she travels everywhere. She goes to all of these different retreats and festivals and conferences. She's everywhere all the time, and she has, I'm sure, a lot of great stories to tell. I follow her on Instagram, which is always fun to see where she's at and what she's doing. And she even, I think like last year, she came out with a yarn line, and she just has so much knowledge about wool, and I'm really looking forward to going through this. We've had this at the shop. I've had this at Yarnology for a couple of years. We've gotten it, you know, in stock and sold it, gotten it back in stock. And this copy was the lone copy at the store, and I was rearranging kind of our book spinners. And I don't know, was calling to me. Like, it was a really good resource that I just needed to have, and I'm really glad I took it home. Well, I bought it, and then I took it home, but yeah. So the Knitter's Book of Wool. This even has patterns and things in it too, which is really fun. It's not just, oh, like, look at that colorwork hat. I don't want to show too much of the actual pattern. Yeah, there we go, you can see it. Isn't that gorgeous? And yeah, there are some sweaters, shawls, hats, accessories, yeah, all sorts of things, and I'm really looking forward to getting a better look at this and learning more. I know a little bit, you know, I'm a spinner, so I know your basics about micron count and, you know, different breeds and things like that, but I feel like there's always more to learn, and I'm excited to learn. Yay! Wool is one of my favorite things, as you can see. Oh, one more thing. Actually, I should have talked about that before. Oh well, that's fine. I actually have a finished object. And this is something I've been cryptically teasing you about for the last, like, I don't know, month. This is my super secret project that I turned in for a competition. And I'll give you a little bit more background on what the contest is all about. So it's not a knitting contest or designing contest. It is more of an art project contest. So back in February or January, maybe? January, end of January, I think. My sister and I went to Old World, Wisconsin, which is an amazing living history museum in Eagle, Wisconsin. And that's just, I think, south of Milwaukee as well. They have I think it's over 600 acres of protected land. And on that land, they have restored buildings, cabins, barns. There's you know, a town with kind of a town square and a few houses and things restored there. So they have an inn, they have a blacksmith shop, they have like a general store, they have a church, a couple other smaller, you know, like businesses. Then they have a few houses that are restored in that area that were more of like, they weren't farmhouses or cabins, and they have everything kind of set up the way it would look. And they're I don't know how to describe it, but they're working. So the inn has a working kitchen with a wood-burning stove where you can walk in and see someone cooking, baking bread and cooking something on the stove, and they greet you, and they're doing chores while they're there. The interpreters are cutting wood, they're gardening, they're harvesting, they're cooking, obviously. It's just an amazing place. It literally feels like you're stepping back in time. They have, I don't know how many farms they actually have, but they have crops planted, gardens planted in different, I think that they have like a Norwegian homestead, a German homestead, you know, all the different immigrants that had come to Wisconsin at certain times. So they have cabins kind of representing a family that settled in that area of different nationalities, and the way that they gardened, which, because of course it was different from, you know, where they came from. They had what they knew, and they kept doing that here in America. So it's just amazing to see. It's one of my favorite places on earth, honestly, which sounds silly, but, you know, I haven't traveled that far, so let's be real here. It's one of my favorite places to visit. it feeds the history lover in me. It feeds my sentimentality, my love of knowing where you come from and your roots and doing things the old-fashioned way, doing things, it might be, harder, but I honestly think a lot of times it's better than the shortcut. And I mean, that's why we knit, right? We are making clothing that, sure, we could buy it on a hanger for probably a fraction of the cost, but that doesn't necessarily make it better. So anyway, Jill and I, we went to a 150th birthday party for Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I did film some of that, so if you've watched in the past, you probably saw my footage of the party and just us really having a good time, feeling kind of like, kids again and indulging that side of us. But there was a bunch of people there. It wasn't just children. We sat at a table with some ladies who were probably in their 60s, and then a couple college-age girls, and then us. So it was a wide range of people, and we were all just celebrating our love for her books, for her legacy, for her person. I have loved those books since I read them in the 3rd grade, and have since then done research. I've dressed up like Laura Ingalls Wilder for a history project in grade school. I think that was 5th grade. I've gone to a lot of her homes, the sites of her homes, and just read a lot about her family and her life. Yeah, I've just continued to love her as a person and an author. And when we were there, they were telling us about a competition that they were going to be putting on for people to either write an essay, do an art project, or film a little bit of something to show, I guess, how these books and the world of Little House has inspired them, and to show that through either words, film, or art. And my sister was like, Jen, you have to enter, you have to design something and enter it, knit it and enter it. And I had kind of been thinking that too as they were explaining it to us, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I did it. So I can show it to you now because it is entered. I had to enter it before May 1st, so I think I sent it all off on Wednesday night. Seaver took pictures of it for me because if it was a 3D project, they didn't want it actually physically sent in. And I imagined that, obviously this would be considered a 3D art project. So I wrote a brief explanation about what it was and why it showed how Laura has inspired me. And it is I call this the Big Woods of Wisconsin capelet. And it is inspired by the outerwear and the cold weather cold weather accessories that women used to wear back in Laura's day. So a lot of capes and shawls and hoods and just things like that would go over their dresses. Women didn't wear like coats, so they would kind of be bundled up in some other things. And yeah, so there's no armholes in this. It has a tree motif, which is inspired by Laura being born in the Big Woods of Wisconsin, and that's where her first book, she was born there, her first book takes place there, and yeah, so it is created by knit and purl stitches and some cables, and it goes all the way around. So this is the front of it, and the tree motif goes all the way around. I have it kind of off-centered, whoops. Okay. And I did a fold over knitted seam, so that's knit right into it. I didn't have to sew that in. So that gives it some good weight at the bottom, and also makes it look really finished in my opinion. It has a knit-on hood, so you can see I did a bit of decreasing there, but the hood is knit right on. I did a 3 needle bind off to close up the hood. I did some decreases at the top of the hood. I kind of wish I hadn't done that, but I didn't have time to go back because they look, I don't know, they look a little offset, and yeah, it wasn't exactly what I had in mind for the decreases. It just didn't turn out the way I thought it would. But again, I didn't have time to go back, and you can't really tell. I also did some decreases for the shoulders. So there's the front shoulder and the back. And this just helps it sit really nicely on, like, on the shoulders, and it gives it just some good structure. I'll post pictures too of me actually wearing it, because me kind of holding it up all floppy like this just doesn't really work. And then there's a little button placket with a beautiful, can you see that? Yeah, beautiful wood button. And yeah, that's about it. But this is knit out of Cascade 220 Superwash in the Smoky Heather. Yes, Smoky Heather colorway, which is like this greenish gray color, which I absolutely love. I had most of this yarn in my stash, though it took a lot more than I kind of was anticipating. Obviously, I was making this up. I kind of made it up as I went. I had the basic idea in mind, but, and I obviously, I charted out the trees. I could not have just done that out of my head. I charted out the trees on the computer and then knit them. But the rest of it, you know, as I was coming up to the shoulders, I kind of had an idea, okay, I want to shape the shoulders somehow. How am I going to do that? And then I looked to see, you know, how many stitches should be for the front, how many for the sides. So it was kind of a fly by the seat of my pants sort of thing. And I didn't write down the pattern. I still have the tree chart, and I still kind of have an idea. I know how many I cast on and that sort of thing, but otherwise I didn't really write the pattern down. So this isn't going to be a pattern release. I don't know how many people would actually want to knit something like this. It's not your traditional shawl. It's not like a accessory that you could wear. I mean, I guess you could wear this like inside over something, but I don't know. It's kind of specific. I don't know. I love it though. I think it's really cool. And when we were taking pictures of it out, we went into like the woods because I wanted there to be like trees in the background and it being very, I didn't want like a lot of people around. Yeah, I wanted to be very, I don't know, secluded looking. And so we went to a park out, it's called, what is it called? It's right before you get into La Crosse, if you're crossing the river here in La Crescent. Pettibone. It's called Pettibone Park, and it's right on the river, but they have an area kind of that's not beach or anything like that, that has trees, and there's like a tributary of the river that is kind of there, and a lake. It like flows into a lake. So we kind of went back in there, and Seaver took some really cool pictures. I sort of felt like Robin Hood walking around. Yeah, not gonna lie, I felt pretty cool, but yeah, so I'm really happy that I got this done. A lot of times, I will say part of my, it's a bit of a character flaw, I think, with myself, but I have lofty dreams, and I will sometimes say that I'm gonna do something and have the best of intentions, and then I will either get scared or I will think that I'm not good enough, or I will think that it's just too hard. I think that's kind of that's an excuse I make because I'm nervous or scared about putting myself out there. But I did it. I knit this. It is functional. It is wearable. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, and I turned it in. So I will let you guys know if anything comes of it. I honestly am just happy that I finished. And obviously I'd love to be a finalist and I'd love to win, but I have it. I followed through. And I'm kind of proud of myself about that. So, and thank you to my sister, to Jill, and to Seaver. Seaver was a good motivator. Jill, I think, she was the one who would kind of check in on me and be like, oh, okay, did you start yet? Are you gonna knit this? And I'd be like, yes, I did. And so yeah, she was a pretty good motivator for that. But yeah, so that's my finished object. And as you can see, that is why it took me forever to get this done. I mean, the stockinette stitch itself took a long time. And then the tree motif took a long time. Those are some pretty futzy cables there. And then more stockinette stitch, and then shaping, and then a giant hood of stockinette stitch. So this was primarily my knitting time for a couple weeks. And I'm really hoping that now that it's done, and now that my little boxy will be finished soon, I will be able to work on and finish and just make a lot of progress, maybe cast on a few new things in the weeks to come. So yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Alright everybody, I think that just about does it for me for episode number 28. Thank you so much for coming and spending a little bit of time with me. I always look forward to chatting with you, and I'm just so grateful for anyone who comes and watches my podcast. So if you are a returning viewer, or if you've been watching since the beginning, I appreciate you so much. I love you so much. And if this is your first time watching, I really hope that you enjoyed it. It felt a little more rambly than normal, but you know, that's okay, I think, hopefully. So yeah, come back and see the next episode and see what you think about that one. Subscribe to my channel, like the video, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Thanks again. Bye.